Here, take this.
Thank you very much. So we'll call to order the Lakewood City Council study session. Lakewood City Council study session of Monday, January 12th, 2026. It is 7 p.m. And everybody is in attendance, all 7 members. So we'll start with items for discussion, natural environment and climate change, NECC, climate advisory team formation and purpose update. And we do have that in our packet tonight. And that begins on page 3 of the packet. Mayor, I will call on Ms. Tiffany Spear of our Planning and Public Works Division Manager to speak to this.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, and members of the council. Happy New Year. This is going to be something that's a little bit of a review for the council and also new council members who are formerly on the Planning Commission who heard about this last year, but also just an update and a recommendation to you for next steps. With me tonight is Eleanor Garrett. She is with our consultants that's working with us on this natural environment and climate change program related to, in particular, the state requirements under House Bill 1181, which passed a few years ago at the legislature and relates to local planning regarding climate resiliency and greenhouse gas emissions and a number of other items. I'll just put it like that. So there has actually already been a number of pieces that EXP, the name of the consultant, has completed for us over the last about year and a half. In 2025, as part of the comprehensive plan amendment cycle, there was an adoption of findings that the parks and recreation element, the utilities element, and our capital facilities element were all now compliant with House Bill 1181, which requires a review and potential change by 2029. We're already there, given the substantive work that was done to our comprehensive plan and regulations in the 2024 periodic update. Where we sit now and what we're here in part to talk about this evening is the work plan for 2025 through 2027. First of all, this is a slightly different presentation than what you were provided in your packet because after it was submitted, we actually were notified that the city will be receiving funds from the Department of Commerce after all. We were told last year that that was not going to happen. So council had provided direction to use ARPA funding and tree mitigation funding for what would happen this next biennium and really be focused on the urban forestry program. However, now that we do have the funding coming from the state as well, the scope has changed and broadened. So we will be looking at actual tree planting events and tree sales with our residents and businesses this year. We're looking at least a spring, if not a spring and fall, urban tree sale in partnership with Pierce Conservation District. There's also going to be hopefully additional projects where the city might be planting on its own property or at least making plans to do so. And there's also what they're calling through Pierce Conservation District mini grants, so stormwater mini grants, where people are able to make changes on their own property. Everything from so-called de-paving, i.e. removing impervious surfaces and replanting, to simply adding new vegetation to their property, and all of that tied back to the priorities the council has adopted about urban forestry. This year is also going to be significant progress and formation of the urban forestry program. There's also changes to our climate change element, which is in our comp plan right now, but there's some review and maybe updates that need to happen under 1181. Similar in the land use element, some changes need to happen. And then some additional things that have now been added to this next biennium's work because of the grant funding is developing a city urban heat resilience strategy, as well as developing planting plans for municipal projects that focus and prioritize climate resilience and native plantings. So all of these things now include but have expanded what we thought we were going to be doing in 2025 through 27. And then the last biennium of this work, because 1181 requires that the city complete its compliance work by mid-2029. The last 2 years, which would start July 1st of next year, will really focus on the transportation element and regulation changes that need to occur. So traffic demand forecasting, inventorying of current facilities, both motorized and non-motorized, as well as the ADA transition plan, and then also creating an electric vehicle infrastructure plan. So those are all going to begin mid-27 and be completed by 29, presuming that the state is going to be providing the city with additional funds to accomplish it. Under 1181, if the state doesn't provide funding, then the requirement to do this work goes away. So coming back now to what we're here to recommend to the council tonight. In addition to that background, we're recommending the creation of what we're calling a climate advisory team. And the intention of this group is to really be the eyes and ears on the ground from the city, as well as subject matter experts, to help the city develop well-informed and well-rounded recommendations and actions. So it's looking at the work over the next 10 plus years and incorporating not only 1181, but also the city's own 3-year energy and climate work plan, the elements, action items from our own energy and climate change program back in 2022 and 3. And then there's been significant work, if you'll recall, with tree canopy assessments and inventory over the last couple of years. So there's a lot of data now to be interpreted and incorporated into policy and recommendations coming back to you. So again, the idea here is to recommend for you a climate advisory team to assist the city in this work. So what would they do and who would they be? This is the way over the next 2.5 years, 3.5 years, to get continuous and ongoing engagement. This is not the only public engagement, though, I should emphasize. These are groups that are people and individuals representing organizations that would provide information through service on the CAT. However, there will be plenty of public outreach. There will be a lot of public meetings, somewhat similar to what we did with our periodic review in 24 and 2023. It's helping to gather community perspectives and also be sort of a conduit, sharing information out to their respective groups as well. And the idea is to include subject matter experts, including educational and environmental leaders, utility representatives, businesses, and then residents. So excuse me, in the near term, which means 26 and 27, this group would begin by looking back to the 2021 Climate Action Plan, which some of you may remember had 89 action items originally identified. Some of those have been completed, some have not. So the idea is that the CAT would take a look at that and see which ones are still relevant, which ones should be prioritized given today's realities and priorities. They would also assist with public outreach. They would be ambassadors to the community regarding, in particular, the urban forestry launch, which will be happening this year. They will be looking at the methodology and findings for the greenhouse gas inventory. So again, this is in some respects a very technical group where we're going to need subject matter experts to be able to provide us feedback on what's being proposed or thinking about how to develop that inventory in particular. There will be advice from the CAT to the city staff, the planning commission, and then the city council ultimately on updates to the land use element. And then also assisting once again with community engagement regarding climate vulnerability. So which parts of the city would be more significantly affected by, for instance, heat increases, as well as tree canopy increases or decreases over time. In 27 through 29, this CAT would also at this point be looking at the transportation element in particular, looking also at the methodology for the vehicle mile traveled study that's required, and then provide additional feedback as the planting plan and resilience strategy get implemented in 27 to 29. So as it sits right now, the recommendation is to try to pull, and the numbers aren't set in stone, but the idea here is Pierce Conservation District, the transit agencies that are active in the city, all of the utilities, looking at community-based organizations, particularly those that serve vulnerable or more affected parts of the city and populations. That educational and research institution, so looking to hopefully Pierce College and the community college as well. Looking at business and economic development representatives, city residents at large, and then the Bird Alliance and/or the Tacoma Tree Foundation as additional environmental experts. And that's all I have as part of the presentation, but Eleanor and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have. Assuming that this were to move forward as a recommendation, our next steps would be to start to bring the group together, seeking those names out of the organizations we've identified, doing some public outreach for people that may want to individually participate, and then get going on scheduling meetings later this spring.
Thank you very much, Ms. Spear. Does anybody have any questions or comments? And we'll start with for either Ms. Spear or the consultant. Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there so much of this code implementation and stuff kind of a lot of the tree goals are going to be met by developers and how we develop the city over time. Is there any way that we could get some input or maybe have like an architect be part of this so they can kind of help with some of the things that could be problematic that maybe people on this list aren't looking at as far as how these codes are going to be put together? And I think that'd be a really important piece of that.
Absolutely. And if it wasn't clear in the way it's been worded here, the intention under business and economic development is to have that type of involvement. Absolutely.
Councilmember Branstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I think that, you know, the action on the natural environment and climate change program, apart from being urged upon us by the state legislature in terms of 1181, is a very appropriate activity for the city to become even more engaged with in terms of doing things. You know, when we were ahead of other communities in the region in 2021 when we started to put this into our comprehensive plan in going through to be able to go and do that. But more so than at the urging of the legislature, that we have in a variety of components relating in the natural environment and climate change element, we have been urged by citizens and residents to become more active and be more attentive to integrating thoughts about this into policies that we make in a variety of areas of being able to go and do that. So I'm glad that we're moving forward. I'm glad that the grant funding that we at one time envisioned and then stopped envisioning and is going on. That being said, however, I'm not in favor of this organization and makeup of the advisory team. Okay, I think that, you know, this is not something that you should be doing with an ad hoc group of people that you have invited to get together. It is envisioned of something that's going to go on for 10+ years, and that really given the legislature and their ability to to tweak things, it's going to become something that we're going to have to deal with for quite a while, because climate change is there, and the interest of the residents in our city in terms of the various aspects of climate change, whether it be water and trees or air quality, or the interrelationship of other things that the city is doing with impacts on that, are not going to go away. And while I look at the proposed climate action team makeup, it's filled with people who I see having technical expertise, okay, but also agendas that are that we need to hear, and that these different groups will be willing to share. Okay, I mean, that's their view. But I think that in guiding our city policy and of looking where we go, we would be better served by, creating a natural environment and climate change advisory board made up of residents. Certainly, the residents can receive information from these groups where the topic under consideration is one where they have valuable information to provide. But the value of structuring it as an advisory board, meaning it would be something that we would have residents apply to do. The mayor would review and propose selecting people as members. The advantage of that is that really gets us into a much more direct relationship with the community. That we would have that the folks in the advisory boards are convened, their minutes are published, that their meetings are public meetings of where there are matters to go on, where public comment is accepted, of being able to go and do that. And advisory boards learn about things that maybe we weren't thinking about, but now we can work for in doing that. So I'd much rather structure an advisory board of perhaps 10 or however many citizens to do that. I think when we ask for applications to do that, there'll be a considerable number of folks that are interested in this in various ways to be able to do that. Certainly, some of them would also have relationships, I think, with some of the groups that are on the current list now, but they'd at least all be Lakewood residents, okay? And they wouldn't be tied and committed to putting forward the views of their groups. And some of these groups already have goals and agendas to be able to go and do that they'd like to influence all cities and other things to be able to go and do. But more importantly, with published minutes and things to do that kind of a board is be much more effective at one of the primary goals here of getting public outreach and getting public input back to us. And would highlight the fact that we've been doing things for 4 years now, but somewhat invisibly. We haven't gotten a lot of credit in the public domain for do that. We just got, well, why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? Being able to go and do that. But we do need to have a board that looks at things and says, individual climate actions, whether it's trees or water or something like that, don't exist in a vacuum. We have to develop policy and take actions in ways that complement the other things that are necessary to make this community advance and move forward. So I would propose that while these people are people we need to engage in our work, that in terms of who's advising us, we should reach out and have a board of residencies that's formally challenged, that meets regularly, that becomes a place where for other citizens to come and raise ideas. And so I don't think it would take us that much longer to put together such a board as it does for this one. It's a question of advertising for membership, passing a resolution that establishes that they can use many of the goals of the functions that are envisioned here, but that we'd be looking at doing it. I mean, so that would be my thought of the direction that we should go to be able, and given that maybe maybe it takes us a couple of months to put that such board together. I don't think there'll be a lack of interested residents that would like to be able to have a voice. And we'd also get folks, because they're not affiliated with an organization, are coming to the discussions with the ability to have their views changed by being in talking in consensus with other residents on a board, of being able to go and do that. And given that this would be something that where we would, maybe there would be changes over, but it's something that we need to go on for 10+ years according to the presentation. But I think 10+ years is a euphemism for nearly forever. So that, so and in terms of the things that we would like to accomplish in terms of in the next 2 years and then in the 4 years after that, I think that list is, good, but I think that list could also be expanded by income from residents, or at least be understood better by folks that would be out there to do that. So, that would be my idea to do that. I know we have had ad hoc groups of doing various things once before, but they tend to, because their minutes don't really get published and they're not really out there, and they're doing all of that, it doesn't reach the level of community engagement that an advisory board would provide, and that I think the community is asking for, given the comments on so many different things that relate to climate change that we're receiving.
Thank you, Councilmember Anstetter. Councilmember Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki, and thank you, Mr. Brandstetter and Ms. Spear for being here. I completely agree with Mr. Brandstetter that this seems like it's well fit for an advisory board or an advisory council. Definitely not to the same volume as the 15 folks that are on this list, because it'd be really hard to get a quorum with 15 people, but maybe 7 or 9 would make sense. And likewise, if we were to build an advisory board or advisory council around this, we would want to assign a liaison from council to help facilitate that. How does this connect with the county's Alliance for Sustainable Climate Action? I know you're part of that too, Ms. Spear.
It will certainly be informed by that, and yes, I am involved with that group. The effort that the city has to do is specific to its own comprehensive plan and language. However, there is going to be partnerships in terms of regional climate change actions. It will be partnerships in terms of some of the inventory work that's required, and it will be an opportunity for Lakewood to educate that group and vice versa. So there will be a lot of collaboration.
Great, thank you. I know that group also does a pretty good job of sharing grant opportunities around climate change and climate resilience that, as you said, we could be informed by them to help with enacting different changes within Lakewood. So thank you.
Councilmember Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Brandstetter too. I think that this is a great way for us to put an advisory committee together that is not influenced by agency. So I like that a lot. My one concern is that I would want people on there that I mean, I know that we all have terms, they have terms on the different boards and they reapply, but this is a real commitment, and it's something that, it's a program. What'd you say, the 2 years? We want people to have the longevity in it so we don't have that break. and that people know what's happening and they can continue with the work. So that would be my one kind of really stress point, that if people are going to want to be on this board, that they want to be on it for the full length and are committed to it. But I think I do support that.
Any other comments? Councilmember Talbot?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that I do like the idea of a blend of subject matter expertise and certainly residents. I think the unwisest thing to do is put together a committee behind closed doors and then meet behind closed doors. I definitely agree with Councilmember Brandstetter that when this body meets, that it should function like any one of our other commissions. I mean, for full transparency. But also at the same time, I think that, so when I served on planning commission and this came to us, one of the things at the time that one of the points of discussion at the time in particular was when, I think last year, when we treated the Lake Wohop. And there was a lot of external community discussion and opinion about, the treatment of the lake and whatnot. And the council heard about it, but then also there was, I think we had a consultant at the time who lent their subject matter expertise that, agreed on some things, but when it got into technical details about testing methodologies and scientific probabilities of whatnot, then you begin to see a divide, and at least I felt like that's where kind of it would help to have some subject matter expertise on some of these issues to really distinguish kind of the fact and the current practice and best practice in current methodologies and current adopted technical aspects of science. So to that end, I can see why having some level of subject matter expertise on a committee like this, because when you start to get into technical matters of some of these issues, especially like greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, there's a science in that. So I appreciate being able to have some informed science and experience in that regard. At the same time, I mean, I think, of course, you definitely need a blend of residents in the mix and community members, because for one, it can be that many of these subject matter expertise, we don't want people that don't live here with our daily ecosystem and habitat. And we do want our residents that do live with the impacts and everything else of the daily system of the habitat. That's why I think a blended mix is a good starting point. I did have a few questions about what I didn't see presented is the matter of like shoreline, water bodies, creeks. Where does that find itself in on this committee?
At this point, that's not part of its scope. This was originally thought about as a permanent advisory board, and then it was switched to an ad hoc committee process because we're talking about specific things that have to be accomplished by a specific date per state law. Having said that, once that goes away, once 1181 has been satisfied, this group could certainly continue to serve
Mic stopped.
Okay. Thank you. So shoreline right now is handled through our periodic shoreline master program updates, which happen every 10 years under state law. The next time that happens will be in 2029. Having said that, there was a locally initiated amendment that happened last year, and there will be another this year. And right now, there's not an advisory board or a standing board or commission for council other than the planning commission that addresses those questions. So in part, that's because the State Department of Ecology has the ultimate approval on those types of changes. So it's not something that's totally in the purview of the city to handle. However, there could be conversations by this group or a future iteration of a group like this to address shoreline issues as well as the other environmental concerns.
Thank you. And then, as far as, I think you may have just answered my question then, as far as there was interest, or I think there still is interest from liaisons from other committees to liaison with this committee in the same way that maybe council members do. What is the, plan or thought process behind that?
Sure. There's been some preliminary internal discussion among the departments regarding, for instance, regular touch bases with our Parks Board, with even the Public Safety Board, because some of those things will deal with transportation issues, and as well as our Youth Council. The idea of having at least one Youth Council member, if not more than one, involved with this process as well. So all of that can certainly be evolving and morphing based on council direction, but the intention would be to have awareness and collaboration, as well as the neighborhood associations, I should say as well. Those meetings also having some involvement with this process.
Thank you, Councilmember Talbot. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, I'm gonna, oh, wait.
Yeah, if you're just finishing up. So the feedback I'm hearing is a council-appointed advisory board. And we're looking at 7, 10 members, potentially mix. Chatting with city attorney, we'll probably bring that back with establishing it in ordinance. Because that identifies some of those expectations of what they're going to be charged with. And I think that would be a pretty good idea to have that formally identified within there. So if it pleases council, we'll look to come back with a draft ordinance in the future.
Yeah, I think we do have a consensus around that. And just to throw in my 2 cents before I ask you a question. I do agree. In looking at this, I was worried about one, the size of the thing. 15 members is pretty rough. I get it. It was well constructed from the standpoint of trying to include everybody. But I also share that it might be a little bit light on local people, right? And so I'm always, I think in my time in Lakewood, I always have this feeling that, you know, I'm from some group and I'm here to help, right? And we've seen more than one time in other spheres. And so understand that it's not an attack on outsiders in general. They bring expertise. It's just this kind of visceral for me, kind of let's be careful with how we bring folks in and what we allow them to do. So, but I do want to say I appreciate the work on this. So first of all, I think it was well constructed. Secondly, clearly they're having to do this around the state. So by creating a citizens advisory board, rather than going with some other type of something with this composition, are we creating problems with the state in regards to compliance? Yeah, this is just crazy.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. The intention was not to be looking for outside subject matter experts, outside participants on this group. All of the groups identified would be populated by those who either work or live in Lakewood. And that's hence why I was mentioning, for instance, Pierce College and the community college to be involved. However, to your question about in trouble with the state, it's really meeting the deadlines, the timing. So if we are able to gather a good citizens advisory board and then have the proper experts come in and work with them as needed to get this done in time, we can certainly work with that. The thought process behind doing this as the start, as the launch of the programs, urban forestry as well as the rest of it, is you get the people in the room, for instance, the utilities that can explain what they may need to do in order to comply with these greenhouse gas emission reductions. Or you have business owners, including land developers, including the architects and such that were mentioned, in order to be able to say, this is the ramifications of these changes that are being talked about. That can happen as part of a permanent advisory board. That can happen as part of an ad hoc committee. So we can adapt as the council directs.
Listening to what we're talking about, I do agree with looking at the advisory board, but I just want to caution that when we look at the advisory board, it needs to be balanced and professionals and able to move it forward and hit our guidelines associated with. So much like when we look at planning commission, we look at the background and where people are at. I know that's not something we've really necessarily talked directly about. So I have no issues with looking at an advisory board, but it has to have members that have the subject matter expertise to when we're talking about items, and we can bring other people in, right, to speak to the group. But there has to be a balance between it, because sometimes some of the things we're asked for are not possible under state law, or they go against good science and what we're looking at. So please keep that in mind as we move forward in looking at a board, that we'll be looking for balance during those interviews as to who is added to that, or it may make it unachievable to get some of the technical aspects we have to hit by the deadlines.
Okay, we'll work with you on that. I think we have a consensus. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming tonight. So from that, we get to discuss the review of the Mount Tacoma Drive project. The Capital Projects Division Manager, Troy Pokswinski. Did I screw that up? Did I blew that up? We've all been looking forward to this. Unfortunately, the former mayor would have loved to have been in this seat right now, hearing about this, and so we're all looking forward to it. Troy, would you gonna lead the way here? Should we make it even wider? Go 80 feet?
Just you.
Yeah. Go ahead, Troy, anytime you want.
There we go. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening, I'm before you to go through the Mount Tacoma Drive project from Interlochen Drive all the way to Whitman. We're looking for feedback on a couple of items this evening. As we go through this a little bit, we'll touch on a couple of the finer impact points. And forgive us, we haven't kind of gone through this. I've got JB one of our civil engineers, with me this evening. He will be managing the project. So to start with, I'm going to start on the west side of the project over by Interlochen Drive. As you can see, as you will see here in a moment, at the curvature, we start moving the road to the north a little bit. That's for two reasons. The first reason of which it realigns the road with the center line of right-of-way, not even quite to the center line of right-of-way. The center of the road will be centered about 2 feet south of the right-of-way line, center line of right-of-way. But it provides us adequate space to ensure that we keep trees, significant trees, on the south side of the road. The bulk majority of your significant trees are on the south side of the road, and we're trying to save those as much as possible. The other thing this does on the west end, since the sharp curve there does not meet design standards, this does provide us the ability to, where's the pointer part there? It does provide us on this curve to meet AASHTO design standards. The current curve, as you go around it, does not meet that. If you ever, I'm sure you've all driven it, you almost, come down to a 5 to 10 degree speed before you get going, and that doesn't meet the design standards. So it does a couple things. What this does, however, is it does put us into this row of holly hedges, and in reality, quite a bit of vegetative removal requirements for the north side of the street between Interlochen and really over here at DeKalb. So we end up with a lot of vegetative loss in that segment. Move a little bit to the east there. Thank you, JB. In a little bit more to the east. So this is DeKalb right there. Stop right there. However, there are two sheds in the segment immediately west of Maple that will need to be relocated. They fully lie within the existing right-of-way, but they will need to be relocated as they will be in conflict with the back of the new sidewalk. Again, you can see here the bulk majority of your mature fir and oak trees are on the south side. We are avoiding those as much as possible. A little bit more moving to the, there you go. This slide shows a roundabout proposal at the intersection of Meadow. We have multiple alternatives there. It's one of the items we're seeking kind of some feedback this evening from you. The roundabout does cause significant impact here at the northwest corner, as well as at the northeast corner. The driveway would need to be reconfigured so that they could access in and out. This parcel has a carport on it, which would no longer be accessible. The roundabout is sized pretty much at the bare minimum for the design that we have out there with keeping a circulating island. It's sized somewhat like Hipkins or the entrance to the park, something of that size, so that you can still get a decent sized truck in there without significant impact to the circulating island. I will state that it's not something that the city would recommend as far as, excuse me, the staff would recommend as far as an improvement here for the roundabout, as the collision reports do not support the need for the necessity for a roundabout, particularly with the impacts to the surrounding parcels. Collisions in the last 5 years are 11 at this intersection, total collisions, only 3 of which were injury accidents, and those are heavily weighted toward the 21, 22, and 23 years. We're actually seeing a larger impact at DeKalb recently as far as number of collisions. I don't know whether that's a change in overall people moving one way or the other, whether there's been a sight distance issue. Either way, we're proposing to clear up sight distance issues on the south side by moving the road north. There's a lot of vegetation on the south side. It's tight. You can't see as well. Moving the road north will aid with that. I would not recommend keeping this status quo though either, as the speeds will increase through here with the changing of the road surface. So as part of this project, we're going to completely remove the pavement. If you've driven that, you know that it's concrete panel. You get that da-dunk, da-dunk, da-dunk. It's almost a traffic calming in that way. When we put the new pavement out there, it will be smooth like glass and people will want to speed up. So recommendation would be put a 4-way stop potentially. That's one of the alternatives here at Meadow, which is almost kind of the central point before you hit the curve going to the east, so that you can aid with that. It would be one of the flashing 4-way stops that we've been putting in. We did put in 2 new flashing 4-way stops here at the beginning of 2025, hoping to see a significant reduction in collisions. We haven't. We've still seen 2 collisions, which is on par with the 5-year average. But that being said, we would want to re-put those in, especially for the east-west traffic, to alert them that there's something different there. Okay, move me a little bit to the east, please. A little bit more right there. The commercial access to the parcel here at Lexington, at the northwest corner of Lexington and Mount Tacoma, is currently parking almost completely within the right-of-way. You can see the right-of-way line right through here. It would be very difficult to continue to safely keep vehicles with this shift and with the putting of the sidewalk out there, continue to put vehicles in this, allow vehicles to park in this space. Or we will need to work with the property owner to discuss parking as part of this. So that's a component that we have yet to go through. We will begin doing that here in the coming months. The parking area and the access to the little church on the prairie, as well as the parcel just to the west of that, would be configured a little differently. The area I'm highlighting here is currently is right of way. So we could potentially come through here, recreate this as a little drive aisle area, and keep the existing, angled parking, the number of stalls as is, while still maintaining this and allowing the use of safe access for pedestrians through there via a new walking surface. One other item that we are seeking feedback on is the light pole standards. They're the light pole types that we've been using. We came before you in 2018 for a recommendation on what you wanted to use, kind of almost citywide, but really for the Gravelly Lake Drive corridor. We heard feedback at that time for concrete poles, which was not a big deal back in 2018. In 2021, the concrete pole manufacturers in the country almost got split in half. And so now we are seeing a dramatic increase in the cost of concrete poles. In 2018, we quoted a price of about $2,000 per pole more for concrete versus aluminum. We're now seeing that up to $5,500. So for a project like Nyanza that we just completed, for the 38 poles, it was $204,000 more for concrete poles versus aluminum poles. You're going to have about 41, 42 poles out here, so it'd be about $225,000 for the material change. So it's something we kind of would like to hear some feedback on tonight as well. With that, I am more than willing to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Remack, sounds like you have some comments before we start.
I did. I just wanted to make comment and have Troy speak to it. You spoke to the intersection, but could you speak to the difference in cost and what you're looking at with the intersection and the offsets? You've spoken to the safety aspect of it, but really speak to the two projects that will not be able to really access anymore, as well as the additional cost of the roundabout when we look at it.
Absolutely. So the additional cost of a roundabout is primarily in, number one, you do have an additional cost in the concrete and the time it takes for you to put that in. That aspect of it is about $150,000 to $175,000. The real cost is in the right-of-way costs that we go, because we need to go purchase the right-of-way. We estimate in between $350,000 and $400,000 for the cost of putting a roundabout there, which there are benefits to putting the roundabout there. It does have increased safety. It does have the availability for future growth, particularly on Meadow. Not that I don't know that you would see growth in the timeline of this project's, benefit to how long Mount Tacoma is going to continue to be a busy thoroughfare. So there is that aspect as well.
Thank you. Do you have another comment, Mr. Remack?
Yeah. Could you speak to the warranting for the roundabout? Is the roundabout warranted versus the four-way stop?
The roundabout and the four-way stop, there is no real warrant for a roundabout. So when you look at warrants, there are warrants for signals, there are warrants for four-way stops. This barely trips the threshold for the warrant for the four-way stop, which is that combined with the fact that you could use it for traffic control, reduction in speed would be a recommendation that the city engineer, as well as myself, would recommend on this. One other feature that I did not also mention on this is we would be looking at putting an 8-foot wide sidewalk on both sides for both bikes and pedestrians, as well as motorized. We're seeing a lot of motorized scooters starting to become popular. So that's something else we would recommend putting in there as well.
Thank you very much. Okay. You've been asked to comment on a number of things. You're also going to ask questions about this project. We'll start with Mr. Loris, or Councilmember Lauricella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki. I'll try and be quick in case this thing is on a timer. Few questions. So first, what's the current speed limit on Mount Tacoma?
25.
25? Okay. And would another possibility be to put speed humps along Mount Tacoma to manage traffic speeds?
With the current status of it's a collector, it might even be a minor arterial. I'd need to look into whether it's a collector or minor arterial. The current legal status of putting traffic calming devices like speed humps is not recommended on any arterials, let alone minor arterials.
Gotcha. I was curious how traffic on this compares to, for instance, what Angle Lane that goes out towards Fort Silicon Park that has speed humps on it?
It's quite a bit more than Angle Lane. This has an ADT of 9,000. So it's in that minor arterial category.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm trying to think of alternatives to the roundabout as opposed to having the four-way stop, maybe a flashing yellow on Mount Tacoma and then stops on Meadow. But with that amount of traffic, maybe those aren't the best options. I remember on Hipkins, before we put in the wigwags, it was definitely a place where people were speeding, and I could see that happening here. So yeah, thank you for your hard work. I'm sure others will have good questions.
There we go. In your presentation, I appreciate the fact that you highlighted the looking to arrange the center line in order to lessen the impact on significant trees. In the section that immediately at the west end, where you said there'd be some significant vegetation loss, not necessarily be significant trees, it would be there's extensive set of laurel hedges in the right of way that are there. Did I interpret that right?
Yeah, correct. According to the survey I have, and in all honesty, I haven't delved too much beyond what you see here yet. But according to the survey that we have, the loss of vegetation is strictly either holly hedge, it's like a hedge that's made out of holly trees, or a lot of laurel type hedges through there. So it's not anything that I see as significant trees. I haven't walked out there and done a verification of yet. I mean, it's very, very 30%.
Okay, and then you mentioned that there was a location where two sheds would have to be, and you use the term moved, not demolished. Are these like sheds that are like backyard sheds that you can actually fairly reasonably move?
In all honesty, I looked at the sheds. They're very, very large sheds, but they look to be precast sheds, the precast type that people, move onto a site and then put there. My assumption would be is that something we could move. Due to age and everything else, I would need to look a little bit more into it. It's something we need to work with the property owner between 30 and 60%.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess, Mr. Mayor, I would say that I'm a frequent user of Meadow, more so than of Mount Tahoma. And that is that there are times, despite, well, I've never had an accident at Meadow and Mount Tahoma, I do find that intersection harrowing at time to do that. And so I would be supportive of the traffic circle design as is shown here. I think Meadow is also a road that not too far down in the future we're going to want to take a look at how we can do some upgrading to that. It is a bus route that travels through this way to be able to go and do that, and is a future candidate for needing sidewalks. So that would be my preference in looking at that design.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I too, when you look at actually, I'll start with the west end here since we have it up. So the west end, I would like some kind of more thought on how we're gonna tie in and terminate the sidewalk on the south side of the road. And probably keep it closer to the intersection where people can, kind of make the assumption that the sidewalk doesn't extend any further and they should probably cross the road if they want to keep going, versus just kind of sending them out to the west and then into no man's land, or, then having to cross the street to try to get back to the sidewalk. So I would just remove a bunch of that sidewalk improvement there, kind of after the intersection on the south side. And then the intersection at Meadow, I was surprised that it even met a four-way stop warrant, but I would not be, I would not like to see a four-way stop there. I feel like that's a weird spot to put a four-way stop when you have kind of a main arterial coming through. I don't know what Meadow is, if it's a local road or whatever it is, but seems like a bizarre spot for a stop. I know the cost is, it's fairly substantial for a roundabout there. But if I was making budget decisions, I would certainly go with some cheaper poles to cut that cost in half, and be able to get a roundabout that would, help with the safety both at the intersection and slow down vehicles coming through there, and really serve as a good long-term design for that intersection if we are going to be doing some more improvements down along Meadow. So I'm with Mr. Brandsetter on that I think that the roundabout is the right choice. It's not an easy choice because of the costs and a number of other things that are complex with it, the property acquisition, things like that. But I think when you look at it, 10 years, you're going to be like, yeah, that was definitely the right choice to go with the roundabout here versus a four-way stop or doing nothing. So, oh yeah, and then that's it for my comments. Thank you.
Oh, yay, okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think first I'll start maybe element by element. Thank you for designing 8-foot wide sidewalks on both sides, first of all. I think that is the right design choice, and I know that it's very easy oftentimes that we in planning and engineering just deviate to or automatically go to the 5-foot width. So I think 8-foot is a good choice. I think I do. Well, so can you tell me a little bit more about the crash and collision history? It sounded like you mentioned, number one, this wasn't a hotspot location per se, and that there is a collision history or crash history, but it sounded like there is an injury rate, but maybe not serious injury. Can you tell us about serious injury and fatality versus just basic collision rate here?
So when we get collision reports, there are different degrees. There's the fatality, there's the significant injury, and then the minor injury, and then no injury at all. So for Meadow, in the last 5 years, we have 11 total collisions. We have 3 minor injury and no significant nor fatalities at the intersection reported. I want to say that is reported. In the last year, we had 2 accidents. Neither had injuries to them. What we really look at in that range is number of collisions, total number of collisions per million vehicles entering the intersection. And when that number creeps over 1.5, we start really paying attention. It's currently at 0.76, and the 2-year or the 3-year is at 0.23. So it's kind of diving a little bit for whatever reason. It is diving a little bit. It doesn't take much though for it to dive, as you can see when you have 11 total collisions in the last couple of years. You know, they were heavily weighted on the first 2 years. It doesn't take much for it to dive. However, that being said, it is right at your top 20 injury accident, total collisions per million in the city. So that's why we would take a look at upgrading the intersection to something other than what it currently is.
Got it. So top 20, but not top 10.
No.
And so that's why, I guess, kind of because the rate is on the lower end, is that why we could also get by with a 4-way stop, although it's, and then the speed on Meadow and Mount Tahoma is 25 on both streets.
Yes, I believe so.
So I think the only thing I do kind of worry about or react to mostly is the right-of-way acquisition associated with a roundabout. Because I assume we haven't spoken with these property owners yet or approached them for the additional right-of-way. And I want to make sure that the cost benefit for acquiring right-of-way serves the benefit that we are getting, and that we need to address safety, but if that can be addressed with another design alternative, and that the other design alternative perhaps also allows us to, at some point in the future, consider a bigger build out like a roundabout in the future, right? Yeah, I think that's just my concern, is that the acquisition of right of way here makes this project very expensive simply to fit a mechanism that addresses safety that another design alternative could. Yeah.
Councilmember Lindholm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As someone who does live on Meadow and I frequent that intersection often, I do not dispute that maybe crashes are not outsized. I would suggest that almost crashes are outsized. I see people gun across that intersection every day, and we've seen 4-way stops elsewhere in those neighborhoods that just don't feel as safe. I'm not saying the money's worth it, but I'm saying that there is a safety difference, a meaningful one for those who live in that neighborhood.
Councilmember Talbot.
Sorry, there were 2 other things I wanted to react to, and that was crossing Mount Tahoma. So it looks like you have crosswalks to get to walk along Mount Tahoma, but no crosswalks across. Is that because the other side streets don't have sidewalks?
So yes, that would be part of it. What I do show in this graphic and what we would put in are ramps for that. We do not put marked crossings at unsigned 4-way stop intersections. That's citywide, something we've always done for safety, strictly for safety. If we were to put something in, we would either put an RRFB in or something of that nature. And I'm not ruling that out. In that area, if that's something the council would want, we could absolutely install an RRFB or something like that in that area. But we don't put marked crossings without some kind of traffic control device out there.
Yeah, that was the other thing I'm glad you brought that up, because that was the other question or comment that I had was, is there a design alternative that could consider speed radar feedback signs or electronic speed feedback signs, either on Mount Tahoma and or Meadow, to help calm speed once you put in the new pavement surface. That might also deter. And then there was one other thought I had about walking, but I lost it, so I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Talbot. Any other comments, questions, comments? Okay, okay, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just comment on a couple of things a couple of the other council members mentioned. And I do think that Councilmember Pearson's observation that the sidewalk going to the west from Waverly on the south side is kind of a sidewalk that doesn't take anybody anywhere, and in fact could be dangerous by someone who went down it half a block and then was sitting there on trying to cross a street right very close to the curve of vehicles coming up. So I think that is maybe a sidewalk that isn't necessary to go to be able to do that. And I guess that I would say that aluminum poles are not incompatible with the neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilmember Branstad. Any other comments? So I have some questions or I share, I think the roundabout clearly is the best solution. But I am concerned looking at that property to the west that we've essentially devalued it. And so I think we really need to speak to the folks. I also think we need to keep an open mind towards how we purchase right away. I know the county in the past, when they were widening 176, they actually purchased whole properties, replatted them, and then sold the remainder. I know that gets really expensive, but we could replat it and or you cut the width of the sidewalks, because I don't know about the guys on the east, but it looks like the property on the west just really we just take a tremendous amount of value out of that.
It is a duplex, and the real impact to it is the easternmost carport. So what we would probably look at doing is taking out the front yard and providing basically a parking area in their front yard would be really the solution to some of their issues.
Which is, where's the front yard in your mind?
I'm sorry, the front yard would be, it's the portion fronting Mount Tacoma. Oh, I got my pointer here.
Oh, okay.
This would become
no.
a parking area. Their
Oh.
driveway would become here. Instead of having a carport here and a carport here, this would all become a parking area.
Okay. I think you should have some discussions with the homeowner and see where this is gonna
Yes.
go. Get some ideas, but we're at risk of holding up the project though, are we not?
Yes and no. There's a lot of discussions we have to have with a lot of property owners along this stretch. I mean, I've got to have a discussion with the commercial property owner at Lexington about his parking lot. If you're familiar with the dip just to the west of DeKoven, there's a parcel there that we need to reconfigure the driveway going back there because we have a rather large retaining wall where it was, and his house is kind of close to it. We've got the sheds. So there's a lot of discussions we have to have with property owners to finalize this. I mean, it's still feasible that this happens in late 26 for construction, but we want to make sure we get it right? So we'll just make sure that we discuss with the property owners up front. But before we did that, we wanted to come before you with where you want to see this going.
I think the general consensus of the council is we'd like a right of way, but we certainly need some kind of traffic calming in there.
Mhm.
And you've made the case that a four-way stop doesn't really work there, given the traffic volumes and whatnot. I like the speed tables. We have them in Oak Brook and I think they work great. But if that's not appropriate for that, then we'll have to come up with some kind of other idea, I think, on that and see what happens with the roundabout. See if you can size that. I mean, even if you narrow the sidewalk there to 6 feet, and then that gives them 2 more feet, you know.
Typically, we like to keep them 8 feet on that portion of, right where that is for the bumpers coming around anyway.
okay.
So that would be something where we like to keep it at 8 feet either way. But we can look at a couple different options, even look at potentially a little bit of a different egg about. I'd need to run some turning templates through it to make sure, but I still don't see there being great access to that carport either way.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to tell us what you're gonna do with that because that
Yeah.
property's, you know, we'll have to make some tough decisions around it, but that the roundabout is clearly the consensus and clearly we're the best way to go. It's a long-term solution. I think I would agree with the other members
Okay.
on that. Okay. Oh, Councilmember Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to kind of wrap up the discussion on this one, I think, keeping it as is and proceeding with, looking at what property acquisition would be based on the design. I don't think that saving a couple feet on a sidewalk or trying to get cute with the turning template's really going to buy us much. So, to keep it simple for the staff, I just move forward with whatever we have here and figure out what the ramifications are and, get back to us on that.
I agree. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Vargas. Review of 2026 Citizens Advisory Board Committee and Commission Work Plans. Assistant to the City Manager, Mr. Michael Vargas.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Michael Vargas here to go over your advisory committee work plans for 2026. And I'll be starting on page 13 of your packet tonight. Just as an overview to kick us off here, at this point, the City Council has met with all of your advisory committees throughout 2025, since you normally have at least one joint meeting with them. During that meeting, you discussed the past, present, and future of all these advisory committees. And so as we work through the 2026 work plans, you should see outcomes from those discussions implemented within here. If not, now is the time, if the City Council would like, to actually provide final input on these, since we'll take this back for a vote at a future City Council meeting. So these are your advisory committees, and if you'd like to change or add something, please feel free to do so. So to kick things off, page 13, we're looking at your American Lake Management District. This advisory committee is all about handling invasive species at American Lake, AKA milfoil. That's sort of the target invasive species here. Looking at the 2026 work plan and budget table, you'll see the line item budget there should look fairly similar to previous years. However, this year we have a new item number 8. The city applied for and was awarded from the Department of Ecology a milfoil grant to actually pay for a milfoil treatment at American Lake. So that's a new item there. We'll be spending $25,000 of that in 2026. Looking at your board calendar here should look familiar. Really the first half of the year, well, really through May, the committee is preparing the outreach postcard or newsletter with committee and staff, distributing that. In May, we see that the contractor conducts the beginning of season aquatic vegetation surveys, sort of get a lay of the land of the lake. In June through August, the contractor will actually begin invasive species treatment in the lake. The board will get an update at the end of August, and in September, a report will be sent back to Department of Ecology as it relates to how the grant was spent. And then we see the last several months really wrapping up with a end of season aquatic survey, as well as a review of the control and treatment report. That does it for this committee.
Any questions? Councilmember Pearson? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We recently received some comments on algae issues at American Lake. Is there any way to incorporate the work that needs to be done to undo some of the code or whatever that was surrounding the limitations that we heard about? Is that going to be, would that go through that committee, or would that be more of just a city staff task on that?
Yeah. City manager's about to jump in on this.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I didn't catch all those questions, but in terms of establishing and creating another treatment component, right now they were never set up for that in terms of their assessment. I know, and if we can grab Public Works Director, because they just tested some of that stuff that came through that came back negative in terms of that, what was claimed to be a toxic bloom, from my understanding. So I know Brianne's just going to get him right now because he just talked about that today. So really, to identify an additional treatment component, they should establish a consultant through there to identify what is the actual condition of it, because I believe he's coming in that had a testing of it that came back negative. Jeff, they were just asking about the recent information and suggestion that there was a toxic bloom within American Lake and testing for it. And I believe we just had test results come back.
Yeah, actually, we did receive information on that today. So the toxic bloom associated with that they were looking at was not in fact a toxic bloom. It came out clear in the Lakewood, in the water site that we were looking at. The requirement from DOE for us to be able to go forward and look at one of those is that it needs to have both a picture of where the algal bloom came from, and it requires approval actually from DOE's lab supervisor to open and look at it. Based on what they saw, they said, no, we're not looking at that right now. So that was the response and what we're looking at. And we did go ahead and draft a response to reach out to the citizenry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Remack. Are there any more questions regarding this committee? The committee's work plan. Thank you. Next one, Mr. Vargas. Arts Commission.
All right. Your Arts Commission, looking on page 14, we'll go through the 2026 work plan. This commission is still very much looking at public art investments, so where to place murals, signal boxes, other items such as sculptures, and hosting public art programs as well, such as the art receptions that are popular every quarter. Another item that the commission looks at is the public art for capital improvements, which for 2026, the commission is very much focused on Wards Lake Park signal box wraps. It's so designed for those that are underway. Quarterly rotating art displays and art receptions will still be hosted at City Hall since those are popular. The commission continues education on its own behalf to stay abreast of the art world, as well as host their annual retreat. And still very much involved in special events in recruitment and retention. You'll see the schedule for the year on the following page. I won't read through that all, but you'll kind of see how the work is divvied up there. And we also have the list of special events that the Arts Commission is involved in. As you know, there's really two subcommittees as a part of the Arts Commission: the Performing Arts Committee, which is very much involved in our special events, and the Public Art Committee, which is all things public art, like our receptions. So you can see the special events there where Arts Commission is involved in.
Any questions for Mr. Vargas? Councilman Branstetter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Mr. Vargas, I look at the work plan, and there's a section there that says public art for capital improvements. That when I go to the next page with topics and things over there, I am not sure I see that transferring to that?
Sure, you're looking at the schedule here. I see public art for capital improvements at the second meeting in February, 2/9/26. And really, that's an ongoing discussion throughout the year as well. But right now, they are pretty keyed in on Wards Lake Park and sort of how to handle signal wrap boxes there. So while there may be a specific line item in February for capital improvement or public art, it's really an ongoing discussion throughout the year as capital improvements wrap up and, you know, we look to add in art there, so.
Yeah, so, thank you. Mr. Mayor, the Arts Commission is one of is a significant success for the city. You know, when I first joined the council, there was an Arts Commission that had a budget of zero. You know, they were making bricks for public art with no straw. And they have come a long way, and we have things to do that. But I think that I don't want to lose the disconnect with the work that we're doing on Nyanza, where we're putting in the infrastructure in the traffic circle at Gravelly Lake Drive and Nyanza North, I guess is what it would be called, in anticipation of doing that. And so I would really like the work plan to specify that during this year, we would like the Arts Commission to come forward with a recommendation for public art at that location, because I think it's a gateway to the downtown. It's something that's there, and it is a really good place to do that. That doesn't mean put it in, but it means give us a recommendation so that we can, in the 27-28 biennium budget for something, to be able to go and do that, because I think that is the next most logical spot for a capital improvement associated public art piece to do that. And if their work plan could highlight to them that the expectation is that in 2026, we'll get a recommendation for that location for a piece of public art.
Thank you, Councilmember Branster. I know we've discussed that piece, and Councilmember Bell is the liaison, so she can speak to this because it sounds like they're already having discussions around.
Sure. Yes, we have talked about this in here a lot because we talked about the gateway area and we were talking about Nyanza because we were like, well, which part of Nyanza? We're getting that confused with just our speak. So it was the Nyanza entrance that is down by the freeway. That would be the gateway area that we were talking about with the roundabout and looking at the art for there, which they're already working, well, starting to talk about things that they have brought forward, how we were talking about the going more of the oak leaf and something that is kind of a little bit grander, but still safe. So I believe that it's just not called out in here, but in previous meetings, we've talked about that. And that is their capital project area that I know that we're looking at. I hope that helps.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I appreciate that. I just think that there is value in calling it out, of saying that it's not just a general look across the city regarding do that, and it certainly is. I think is our discussions that require more than one meeting topic during the year to be able to go and do that. And I know that they have moved things forward before without having things called out. It's just that I'd be more comfortable with communicating to them that we have an expectation, particularly in time, to be able to use their recommendation for 27-28 biennium budgeting.
Mr. Vargas, when are they due to come to meet with us?
So I see joint commission meeting scheduled for September 14th in 2026. It's kind of
Is that-
later in the year.
Be glad to receive the recommendation of that meeting.
Right, that's a late date, but we could do that because we don't do the budget till after that.
Sure.
But I mean, they'll have to speak to, I mean, you'll have to talk about the budget side too with the city manager and whatnot, but that would be good. Can they make that? In your humble opinion, Mr. Vargas, we're not
We
gonna,
could certainly add that in,
okay.
just to call it out at least. So have
Okay.
it on the schedule there, so can add a Nyanza Art recommendation to that joint meeting.
Thank you very much. So now let's go to the Community Services Advisory Board 2026. Oh, you were ready. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if it probably wouldn't be maybe appropriate for this year's plan, but I do want to just kind of plant the seed that as we start thinking about the downtown park and, you know, what we're doing there and the Lakewood Theater, I think that some, you know, kind of more grand thinking needs to happen, how those two are going to relate. And I don't know how much of that gets involved with the Arts Commission, but I could see them playing a good key part in what reimagining that could look like as it relates to, you know, creating this kind of downtown park and, you know, integrating it all together. So I think it'd be worthwhile discussion to start at some point here, sooner rather than later, you know, and what comes from it is, you know, to be determined, but, thank you.
Now we'll go to the Community Services Advisory Board 2026 Annual Work Plan.
Sure. So this advisory board really tackles three kind of broad areas here. First and foremost is that it administers the human services grant program for the city every biennium. So we'll see in the 2026 work plan section at the bottom there, we have review of the 26 human services contract performance, as well as produce 27 funding recommendations for the city council. The other tranche here that the board looks at is as it relates to our CDBG/home program here. So we'll see review of the CAPER as well as the annual action plan. Item number 5, there's usually a public hearing on the CDBG home annual action plan conducted at the advisory board's meeting. This is in addition to the overall public hearing that's also conducted at a city council meeting as well. So sort of two avenues for the public to weigh in on the annual action plan for CDBG and home. And the final tranche here is everything to do with opioid funds. So the board will be tackling that discussion item here as well and provide recommendations about how to use those funds in Lakewood. So if we'll look over to their schedule here, you'll see the first quarter, roughly into May, is all about, well, looking at the draft action plan and beginning for CDBG, but also looking at drafting the 2027 Human Services application, as well as revisiting the rating tool for the application, just so applicants are a bit more have a bit more transparency in how those ratings were arrived at by the raters there. And also including how to fold in opioid settlement funds into that. You'll see several meetings having to do with the opioid settlement funds discussion, as well as having discussions and presentations from community service providers in this space. This is really contacting providers who work, you know, on the opioid issue. For example, Greater Lakes Mental Health will be a presenter there to really discuss, you know, provide input and how we should use those funds here in Lakewood. Other community partners would be West Pierce Fire and Rescue, coming to chat about this, as well as discussing with our own police department. You'll see that around, well, in June, you'll see a finalization of the 2027 application and rating tool. In July, the actual 2027 application will be released. We'll see the board really looking at those applications through September here. And in October, there will be a joint session with the city council in which the board will present those 2027 funding recommendations, as well as opioid settlement fund recommendations, as well as CDBG item there for 2027. And really, this is all wrapped up in November as the city council reviews the 2027 funding recs, both for the human services overall and also the opioid funds as well. And that rounds out the schedule there. Yep.
That the only comment that they'd made is the one piece in this schedule that's here is in August, there's a bill for hold human services applicant training. That has to do with actually looking at the applications and then making sure that the applicants really understand what we thought their application was saying, to be able to understand and so that they are before the final decision is made. Because in the past years we've had with that clarification to some applicants, they decided to withdraw their applications because they didn't really realize how we were focused to do that. And I think that will be important this year as they're considering with applications regarding opioid dollars in terms of how they're doing that. And they are looking at where it says human services funding in applications. They do intend to roll opioid services into the human services to do that.
Good.
With the additional dollars that are coming from opioid, not to supplant any of the 1% dollars to go on.
Yeah, we look forward to that. My comments are that's a pretty tight timeline they give themselves to get that 1% done. It's kind of interesting but I think the folks involved are very experienced and they know what they're doing. Any other comments, questions? Lakewood's Promise Advisory Board.
Yep, so this one is all about implementing the 5 promises for Lakewood youth in the city here. And those 5 promises are adults that care, public safety, health, education, equal opportunity. And you'll see that reflected in the work plan here. Skipping down to the 2026 work plan, the board is still reviewing annual initiatives that happen around the community that the board is involved in, such as this youth mental health, safe spaces, and genuine adult and peer relationship programs. The board plans on hosting at least one workshop in 2026 to teach youth essential skills for life and or their future. That was done in previous years as well. This board is very much involved with the Youth Council and supporting their activities and initiatives. So you'll see that the board will continue to work and capitalize on school events, family nights, and other youth activities, sort of get more presence about the board and its mission out there. And also helping coordinate with Youth Council on their annual summit as well. So you'll see the schedule reflected there. Yeah, it does.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Vargas? Thank you. So the next one is the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. So they just meet during the year and make their recommendations.
Oh, yeah. Their singular focus is administering the city's lodging tax grant program, bolster tourism and economic activity in the city. To go over the short meeting schedule there. In July, you have a joint meeting with LTAC in order to sort of set priorities for the next year. In September, LTAC will listen to presentations and rate and make funding recommendations. And those recommendations are presented to City Council in November for approval.
And I'll be part of the budget.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Mr. Any questions for Mr. Vargas? Okay, next Parks and Recreation. Councilmember Branstetter, you got a question?
Yes, just to clarify where it says chair in red, I think that's intended to be an elected official
I think so. Yeah.
that we'll discuss later in this meeting.
Yes. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Yep. So PRAB here, you'll see their 2026 work plan items there. They have about 12 on their plate this year. Some highlights include keeping up with the climate change initiatives and urban forestry program, which you just got an update on that, the NECC earlier tonight. The legacy plan update, since updating that document is currently underway. You'll see an item concerning historic preservation, code changes as requested by council in our parks, and also a playground replacement item as well. Since playground maintenance is included within the legacy plan, we're finding out that the playgrounds are kind of, I don't want to say expiring, but need more maintenance than what was originally in the legacy plan. So there's a specific call out to how to address playground maintenance moving forward in 2026. Then you'll see the actual schedule there, a little bit more into detail below. I will say that, for example, the Camp Murray Improvement Project update, the RFQ for the master plan for Camp Murray boat launch, that's currently live. So you'll see an update about that master planning process to the board anyway in the May timeframe. But yeah, that's what I would call out here.
Okay, so Councilmember Pearson, you are the liaison and you have some comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing about any of the work they're doing really, but more so the process on which we assign the work plan. It seems, good on the off years, but every couple of years when we get together in the spring and we come up with our goals, those goals are not really realized onto a work plan until a whole year, And so I almost think it'd be more appropriate to do a work plan, like a mid-year work plan, that would happen after we get together as a council. And if our priorities happen to change from the previous priorities, then those could be more well reflected in real time, rather than being so delayed. So just a comment on the process of that, and maybe something to consider, I would say.
Yeah, we have our joint meeting, it looks like in June. So hopefully by then, as a council, if we have any additional park items, which we may have, or flesh out some ideas that might already be in here in the plan, we should be able to give them a lot more information. I think that's a good point. Councilmember Branstetter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think Councilmember Pearson's comments are well received and appropriate, and that they apply more broadly than just to this one specific work plan as we work through to do some things.
You might.
That we need to be able to make. I think is it. Is to develop a process when we do some actions that we then want to have one or more of the committees to follow up to submit them a modification to their work plan, and maybe you would reasonably do it. Don't say by next week do this, but by saying add this to what you're doing and see where you can put it in, because I think that is a shortfall of how we go about assigning work plans and people get going. And I think we do make midterm corrections, and that we just have to incorporate into the way we go about doing business a procedure to request to do that. I mean, some of the advisory boards aren't shy occasionally of requesting us to make a change to their work plan when they want to do something different. So we should follow through on that idea.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Okay, good. Let's go to the Planning Commission. Is that next? Oh, Councilmember Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to react on this, on the parks work plan. I agree with my council members. I also think that the legacy plan update is a huge, is in and of itself is a quite meaty item for this committee. And particularly in that, I kind of wondered if, I mean, I know that at the next meeting, we're going to talk about that in more depth, but the engagement and the outreach in completing the work plan is particularly of interest to me because, and one thing that I wonder if we could get from this group is some feedback on the park system as some feedback on the outreach completed as best as it can be completed to as much of the city as possible. I know that we've been doing the exercises of like sticky notes and poster boards at our events and collecting feedback that way. But there are some specific geographies of the city that have never historically had neighborhood associations and don't currently have neighborhood associations. And it's been really hard to to put together neighborhood associations in those particular areas of the city. And so as a result, we don't get the type of feedback and engagement that I think we should, given our demographic. And so it would just be my ask that perhaps there's a way that this work group could maybe help us in that task of ferreting engagement from some of those harder to reach folks. Because our members on the Parks Committee are more, I think, intimate with areas of the community that maybe we may not be. And I also just put out in general that when it comes to our neighborhood associations, and now I'm talking just kind of away from parks entirely, but just when it comes to our neighborhood associations in general, that perhaps I kind of wondered if it's maybe something that eventually we also ask or we co-ask of our other committees, whether it's community services or even Lakewood's Promise, to help us give us some feedback on maybe what are the challenges of connecting with some of those neighborhoods that we historically haven't been able to connect to, and how can we better engage those groups? Is it a particular community-based organization that we should be reaching out to? Are there churches or parishes or faith-based groups that we should be talking to, or is it maybe some coordination with the school district? So I just wanted to put that out there for this. Thank you.
Is that one live?
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Talbot. Any other questions or comments about the Parks Legacy Plan? They got a lot to do because of that legacy plan, and it is very important. We need to have some discussions as a council around that, and I'm glad to hear we're gonna have that night. Councilmember Laura.
No, just
Oh,
make sure that.
Oh, okay, okay. Councilmember Vargas. Mr. Vargas, Planning Commission, although this is pretty straightforward, they have to be.
Sure.
law.
Yep. This is a straightforward work plan. It should look fairly familiar to previous years. Just to call out some highlights here. The Planning Commission will be still following up with tracking the natural environment and climate change program as it moves through the year. And also tracking development of the Parks Legacy Plan update as well. You'll see recurring items such as looking at the 2026 Comprehensive Plan Amendment cycle. I believe there's 25 amendments coming up, as well as reviewing the 6-year TIP. And let's see here, some of the bigger items here. Track required updates to the Lakewood Shoreline Master Program. I believe some potential changes are coming up per newly adopted state administrative code there. And also tracking development activity in our sub areas, such as the downtown, the Station District, Telecom and Woodbrook sub area, as well as keeping track and updated on on progress made in implementing state law, land use changes. I mean, a handful of them are happened throughout the last several years, and yeah, commission will keep updated on those. That concludes that.
And we'll wait for more law changes coming out of the next
Yeah.
legislative session that just started, so we'll see, see what they can come up with. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Yep, Mr. Vargas, I'm just, the very last item on the workbook plan topic list, provide a report on progress made in implementing state law is a report to whom? Are we required to supply a report to somebody at the state, or are they making the report to us, or are they just making a historical record?
I believe it's a staff report to the Planning Commission on progress made by city staff in implementing these state law changes. So keeping the commission abreast of all the land use changes in this, past several years, with middle housing comes to mind and all that. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're telling me this is not a report that the Planning Commission is going to make. It's a report so they're going to receive a report.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Is the council going to receive that same report?
I could follow up on that.
Mr. City Manager, yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's in the narrative. It's annual provides a report to the city council on progress made in implementing the goals and requirements of state law and on the status of land use policies and procedures within the city.
There you go. Be receiving a report.
Any more questions about the Planning Commission? Okay, Public Safety Advisory Committee, PSAC.
Yep. So looking at the 2026 work plan, at the bottom there, a couple items here. The first item is the neighborhood association revitalization. Really sort of PSAC wants to increase their role and sort of participation in the city's sort of revitalization program. So PSAC is looking to be more active in the neighborhood associations. Perhaps that looks like tabling any of, events hosted by neighborhood associations, also attending their meetings. So that's really what this item is about, folding in PSAC more into the neighborhood associations. The second item there, as it relates to public service announcements, PSAC is looking to help our Lakewood Police Department as another voice in the community to get the word out about these public service announcements as it relates to traffic safety, boating safety, school zone awareness, This probably would dovetail nicely into being more involved with the neighborhood association meetings as well. So it's really being another mouthpiece to help get the word out about any sort of safety initiatives or announcements by LPD. And as we've seen here, PSAC is looking to increase collaboration with youth council representatives. As we've seen throughout the work plans, there tends to be a youth council liaison. So yeah, really increasing work with the youth council there. And also a Marine Services Unit update as well from the Lakewood Police Department. And yeah, those are the substantive items there, 2026.
Any questions on PSAC? Councilmember Branstad.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we did receive a report from the police department as it related to the ability to expand the number of camera enforcement locations. And we received at that report, it included a significant list of places of where cameras might be legally placed. It included schools and parks and some other things. But it was not a prioritized list. And I didn't think that we envisioned, I think we envisioned at some point of time of moving forward with adding cameras. But I think that if we could add to the work plan of this group to assist in prioritizing the list of potential photo enforcement locations, it would be helpful to us to be able to go and do that. It certainly would be helpful to those in the department that are working on it, because it would provide a connection to the community about where is the need be greatest, or the impact to be able to go and do there, which should be considered because it may differ from the impressions of the police department, and the two things could be harmonized. But I think a prioritized list would be helpful, and for this group to provide input to creating a prioritized list would be a good addition to this work plan.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And is there any reason why they shouldn't be involved in this?
Well, no, the direction we received last from council is to bring back a list, just exactly that, of recommended locations for that. If council would like that to go through Public Safety Advisory Committee beforehand, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea to vet it through that committee. I mean, that's just one or two meetings, I think. Councilmember Laura Sella, I mean, it looks like you're the liaison or have been. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good use of that committee's time to help prioritize that list and make the recommendations, since they're supposed to represent the cross-section of our community.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for the suggestion, Councilmember Branstetter. Okay. Councilmember Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mayor Boki. As a liaison to this advisory group, there have been some challenges with participation and getting folks there to have enough for a quorum. I know at least one meeting has had to be canceled, one had to start about 20 minutes late, and one had to end before they got through their whole agenda due to folks having to leave. I wonder if there is the opportunity to talk to the representatives to reaffirm their commitment to this board, so that we can make sure to be efficient with the time of the folks who do show up, including our police and fire representatives, as well as people who are from the city who have shown up to present and weren't able to.
I apologize. I have a hard time hearing with the voice going that way. What was the question?
Well, they've had attendance issues in that board specifically. So we can either handle it specifically, or maybe I can send something out under my signature thanking everybody who's on every board about their participation, but reaffirming that, you know, we need regular attendance and that kind of thing. So what do you think? I mean, there's this one specific issue, clearly. I think they made mention of it at their meeting or their joint meeting. Or do we just try some 5,000-foot level, the council, the mayor, under, I guess, under my beautiful signature that we were talking about tonight?
We can reaffirm to all of them, just in the question that not all the boards, not all the members, but occasionally there's attendance concerns that some have been canceled. So just as a reminder to all board appointees related to the attendance, if there's an issue with it and question of participation, let us know type thing.
Just reaffirming that we appreciate you being on the board, but it's really important to have regular attendance, and if you're not going to be able to, please let the
Liaison know.
liaison, the city.
Yeah, and are you looking for that to be signed by you?
I think I should
Okay.
say that.
Yeah, we can
On
get,
behalf of the council.
yeah, we can get something like that put together and get it just as a reminder to all our
So
board.
thank you, but a reminder to, hey, you know, this is important stuff, and
Sure. Yep, we can get something like that put together.
thank you. Thanks for that, Tristan. So is everybody on board with that? We just we're basically thanking everybody, but at the same time saying, hey, this is important work, and okay.
No need to excommunicate it.
No, not yet. Thank you very much. Any more questions on the PSAC? Okay, so let's, youth council.
Yep, so just to confirm, I'll be adding sort of vetting the the traffic camera program expansion, sort of vetting through that list there. I'll be adding that probably on one of the first meetings. Yeah, get that done earlier in the year. Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, Public Works and the police, I think, have done some work on that. They
Sure.
presented us stuff, so they're 2/3, 3/4 of the way there, I
Okay,
think,
so-
to meet with that group.
Okay. Sometime.
But Mr. Mayor, I think that I would like them to have it occur, like, discuss it one time and then 2 months later come back to finalize their recommendations so that they can actually do some outreach in the community or go and actually look at some locations to be able to go and do that, as opposed to it's more than a one meeting topic for discussion. I think it's learn about it and then come back and do that.
Agreed, because I think if you listen to the council meeting when we discussed this, that, you know, we're not necessarily of one mind on this, I think. So I expect that they may not be of one mind, but we're awaiting their input.
Sure, we'll get that done across 2 meetings, it sounds like, so, okay.
Youth Council.
Yep. Youth Council Advisory Board, this is very much your largest advisory committee here. I think we're clocking in at almost 60 members. And yeah, that it actually involved, you know, that informs their work plan. So looking at the work plan section towards the bottom there, this Youth Council is still very much involved in providing that youth perspective to City Council on youth initiatives around the city. The council still volunteers at city-sponsored and community-driven events. They host their annual Youth Empowerment Summit. You'll see the last 2 items there actually has to do with the size of the Youth Council here. A working subgroup has been convened to look at the item of limiting the Youth Council member size, sort of looking at the pros and cons of having such a large body. I think a retreat perhaps is in the works for this subgroup, something of 4 to 5 hour session to really come up with that pros and cons list and come up with a recommendation, which will be encapsulated in that number 7 item there, revise the Youth Council ordinance to perhaps limit the amount of members on the Youth Council. So that's sort of an item we're looking at this year, which is new from previous years. So kind of a good problem to have, but that's definitely on on their agenda there. And yeah, you can see their schedule there as well. I think, yeah, we see hosting the Youth Summit in April. And yeah, we have a recommendation about changes to membership size to council. They put due in March sometime, so we'll be looking forward to that. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just have a little bit of a concern with limiting the members. These kids are really involved when they're in it. There's a lot of subcommittees within there that need a lot of bodies. So maybe it's something where there needs to be staffed up a little bit more from the city side. Because when my daughter is on the council and she talked to her friends and they wanted to be on it too. And everyone was really excited, and then they're on their subcommittees. And I just would hate to put a limit on how many people could be on the youth council. I know they also use it a lot for resume building, things that they put on for colleges. So again, that would be my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bell. Councilmember Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Bell. It doesn't do us a service to limit the potential of the youth in our community. So I'd like to hear the justification for why they think they need to go smaller and if it's something that we can address.
Is it bigger than the list you currently have right there? There's a lot of people last year. Is this last year's list? Oh my goodness gracious. Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, we'll await the results of that discussion. Okay, anything else, Mr. Vargas? Thank you very much for your work on this. There's suggested changes, so we'll have those when these return to us next week, I believe. Okay, thank you. So, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we will wrap things up with a discussion about committee assignments next year.
1 second ago.
There. I think I'm working too hard at it. Thank you very much. I think I'm just being extra. Sound like my kids. All right.
Were you guys expecting to actually accomplish work tonight?
Yes.
Was that the goal of the meeting?
Yes, so we're actually going to get this done here now. So starting on page 29 of your packet, item number 4 in the agenda, review of city council liaisons to citizens advisory boards, committees, and commissions, city council representations on external committees and boards, and city council proclamation calendar. Any comments, or should we just get into from the city manager? Or he provided us with the information earlier this week, I think, or earlier last week, actually. Thank you very much. It covers a number of pages. And I think we will start with, what's the first item in there? The boards and commissions here at the city. There are, well, let me get to the right page here. By my count, because we have no one on the American Lake Management District #1 and the Civil Service Commission, it doesn't look like we put folks on there. We have 8 committees, we have 7 people. And I'll let you know that as mayor, traditionally, the mayor has handled the lodging tax. So I will then give up my position on the planning commission. We have open positions because members are gone on the Lakewood Promise Advisory Board. So please let me know your comments as to where you would like to, what committees you would like to be on. So who would like to be recognized first? Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to continue being on the Arts Commission, and I would also like to continue work with the Youth Council. If there's any other areas that come open or that need to be filled in, I am also open to that, but those are the 2 that I would like to continue with.
Is there anyone yearning to be on either of those 2 committees so we can discuss this around arts? Councilmember Lauricella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to remove myself as the representative, second representative to the Youth Council, as I don't have the available time to attend those meetings.
Okay, so the Youth Council meets on Mondays at 4 p.m. So that's council days, but it is a little bit early. So is anyone else interested in being the second representative to the Youth Council? This is a big youth council. We could probably go to 3 representatives, but anyway, we're looking for a second. Let's keep that in mind unless anybody else wants to. Everyone okay with the Arts Commission, leaving her on the Arts Commission? Okay. Anyone else? Councilmember Brandstetter.
Mr. Mayor, I anticipate and would like to be move up to be our representative at SHAPE. I would like to give up the position as a liaison to the Community Services Advisory Board. I think that's and that is kind of a board that you really need somebody who's going to be there for 2 years, because they do contracts, review contracts, and award 2-year contracts, and the workload on that is going to actually increase with the opioid dollar coming into play.
And I believe, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following up on Mr. Brandstetter's comment on that, whoever we choose to serve on the Community Services Advisory Board, I would need to work with closely as the Pierce County Opioid Abatement Chair. So I can either take that role or work closely with whoever does.
I think Councilmember Lindholm has expressed an interest in doing that, but I'm going to look to you.
Yeah, so that is one I'm interested in. Unfortunately, I do think I have a conflict for part of those meetings. The latter end. I am able to do the Civil Service Commission.
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
think that
Branstad.
our relationship with the Civil Service Commission and that is not a city council appointed commission. It's actually a group that actually works directly for the city manager. We have traditionally not had a liaison to it.
Are you still interested then in the, are you going to be able to make the meetings when they actually do the,
I'll make that work.
okay. Okay. Yeah, and the important work, and we'll talk about the opioid commission here in a minute. So we're down to Lakewood Promise Advisory Board. This, I think, must have had Councilmember Moss, former Councilmember Moss on this. This is an open position. Is anybody interested in the Lakewood's Promise Advisory Board? Those meet on Thursday mornings at 7:30 here in the City Hall. Who's the early riser in the group? We're looking.
We have two new people.
I don't know if it's in person or.
Mayor, each of the advisory boards have an in-person option as well as the virtual attendance option, similar to the city council meetings.
I can do that one.
Is that okay?
Or if you have a burning desire, go for it.
That's, yeah.
Okay, and lodging tax, I'm gonna handle. Ryan, you want to stay, Councilmember Pearson, you want to stay on Parks and Rec?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Planning Commission, who would like to be the liaison to the Planning Commission? They meet first and third Wednesdays. They actually, as at least two of you know, they meet, can sometimes meet more often than that. Very busy committee. Ms. Talbot, would you like to be the liaison? Okay. Public Safety Advisory Committee, you'd like to stay on that, Tristan?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as it aligns well with my day job. I think I can best represent the needs of the community, both from that and from them to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we're in great shape on that. We are just short one helper for Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Bell on her 60-member committee that she's got to ride herd on. Teenagers, which she understands very well. So, okay.
Since we've gotten to the end of the list, earlier tonight, we talked about this climate advisory board type board coming together that I think would need a liaison as well. I would be interested in that since
Okay.
I'm doing one for the county.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You are involved.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll have that discussion later, but we'll keep that in mind when it's actually formed. Is that okay to wait on that? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would just like to offer support to Mr. Pearson on the Parks Board. I'd be interested too, and that's, and I'm happy to, work with the Planning Commission, but if you need an alternate or extra support, I'm happy to support you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll put you down there as a alternate on that. So thank you very much, everybody, on that. So outside boards and commissions, and there's 10 of these now. And this is a world that keeps growing and growing. So the ones the mayor usually handles are the Pierce Transit. And it looks like by law, I'm South Sound Military Community Partnership Elected Officials Council. So after that, I'm not going to, well, maybe we'll just run down this. Councilmember Brandstetter mentioned South Sound Housing Affordability Partners. I will go off that and he will take that over. He's been an alternate and a half for me for several years on that. He also has some, I think, ideas that that Shape's going to really like and get behind here in the city of Lakewood. So I think that that will be a really good move for us. The other item, and then we'll fill in. It sounds like Councilmember Laura Sella, you're good with staying on the Opioid Abatement Council. Councilmember Branstetter, would you like to remain the alternate on that?
I'm not opposed to that. However, I think it would be perhaps better if Councilmember Lindholm became the alternate on that, in that it ties closely with the Human Services, the Community Services Advisory Board, and that this council actually discusses ideas and how things are being, funds are being used. And so that way may be a better fit.
Councilmember Lindholm, you agree with that? I think that's a really good idea to align those. Okay, good. So let's go back to the top of that page, I guess, the Greater Tacoma Convention Center Public Facilities Board. I think I've gone once in all my years here. Hopefully Linda Smith goes. I can remain as the alternate because I'm not planning on going. So I'll just leave it at that unless somebody really, Mike's been involved.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, one of the reasons why Linda Smith is our representative is that a change in state law doesn't allow an elected official to serve on that board.
Oh,
So
There you go.
an alternate, we would really need to look for, it can be someone from staff or it can be someone from another community individual.
I'll look at the city manager to try to figure that out then, find out, talk to Linda Smith and see if there's somebody else in the community that might work, or, I hate to give staff more to do, but Ms. Schumacher?
Mayor, we'll follow up on the alternative for that board or that
Okay,
alternate.
thank you. All right, so we're working down Pierce County Regional Council. So former Mayor Whalen and myself have been on that for a long, long time. I've had discussions with some folks. I don't know, I really think we need to change our tact and our tactics on the Pierce County Regional Council. So the folks I'd like to put in here are people that eventually, I mean, they're having a meeting this Thursday to pick leadership, or to pick the vice, I guess, the deputy, the second person. I would hope not on Thursday, but in the future that we would take some time and try to get into leadership positions at the PSRC or PCRC, excuse me. So this is at the local level. This is on Thursdays. I think everybody likes being on Zoom. Honestly, I mean, we could have been back a long time ago, probably. But and that might be one of the things you might want to talk about. So I've discussed this with several folks on the council. And so I'm going to look towards Councilmember Talbot and Councilmember Lindholm, if those are positions that you two can fill.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be very interested. There is a conflict though with Community Services Advisory Board.
Oh, okay. Okay. The puzzle isn't, okay, so. Councilmember Pearson, do you want to move into that second position? And Councilmember Talbot, are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd be happy to step up.
okay. Councilmember Pearson, well, now you're moving up to the big time. We have two representatives. Yeah, you're called up to the majors. You're going to the show. Yeah. And typically the meetings go about an hour and a half on Zoom.
Did they traditionally meet in person before COVID?
They did, yeah, in the annex, yeah. I think, yeah, in the meeting room there in the annex. It got crowded sometimes when they were doling out money. It got very crowded and hardly enough seats to sit because there's a lot of, I'll be careful what I say, but no, I won't. Hangers on, right? So there's a lot of other folks that are invited that aren't necessarily the cities, but some are voting members. Some are just there for informational purposes, but they're valued members, so they sit at the big table. So it works pretty well in Zoom. I think that helps the participations from cities farther out. Clearly, they really like it. I think everybody likes being on Zoom. I would note, though, that SHAPE, that my Councilmember Branstetter is going to go on, tries to meet once or twice a year in person. And that's it really helps, you know, so that may be one of the things that you might want to suggest, like, hey, I'm new to this thing. You're going to find out that there's a lot of other new people. And it would be nice to have some get together. They typically have these annual meetings, but they were really big affairs, really a lot of people and get speakers. So I don't know if it was a lot of get to know. So it might be time to say, hey, let's do 3-4 times a year or something in person and just to get to know people, because there is turnover depending on elections. One year we had I don't know, 4 or 5 mayors that lost their elections. So they were like, these guys were like, why this is my last meeting, right? I mean, people we really liked and really contributed to the thing and they didn't make it. So anyway, we can talk more about it. So I think we have our 2 people. Thank you very much.
So Mayor, on Pierce County Regional Council, you have Councilmember Talbot and Pearson for your 2 representative positions.
Yeah.
You also have an alternate slot that you can select a council member for who would be able to vote in your absence.
Does anyone want to be the alternate, or I can be the alternate too? You want to be the alternate? Okay. Councilmember Bell will be the alternate. Sewer review, boy, this is an exciting one, and I don't know, have you ever gone to a meeting, Councilmember Pearson, but we can leave you on sewer review board. Okay, good. Pierce Transit Board, I'll be on. Puget Sound Regional Council General Assembly, we all go to that. Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Committee, Mr. Pierce, Councilmember Pearson, would you like to remain on that also? Okay.
And Mayor, that is one we'd also be looking for an alternate.
You want to be the alternate, Patty? Councilmember, Deputy Mayor Bell will be the alternate. Thank you. SHAPE, we need an alternate now. We Mike is that. So the SHAPE board's a neat board. It's Friday. You want to do it, Phil? Okay.
The SHAPE Executive Committee, it meets monthly by Zoom with the exception of the twice a year meetings are in person.
Yeah.
And the meetings are like at 8:30 in the morning or so that it's not there's no travel and significantly involved in the commitment, but the discussions are good, and I think there are some areas in housing that we need to become aware and share both what we're doing and learn what's going on. So if there's a good idea that would work in Lakewood, we can bring it back and get going with it. So, and the way that they hold their meetings, that both the primaries and alternates can attend on Zoom and participate in the discussions. It's just a question of if on the rare occasion that there's a vote, if the primary and alternate are there, only the primary gets to vote.
Councilmember Lindholm, do you have an interest in that? It's Friday morning, so will that work? Okay, great. Let's put Councilmember Lindholm down as the alternate on that. It's a good committee. I really like the folks. There's a lot of smaller town mayors, but you also have leadership from the county council and the county executive's office, and it's very informative. So South Sound 911 Policy Board. Councilmember Branstetter is the member.
I made the commitment to them other year. My effort to escape was thwarted by council member.
You got a good job.
Awarded. Okay, Tacoma Tide Flats Sub-Area Plan Advisory Group. I don't know who goes.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
that,
we need-
the Tacoma Tide Flats Sub-Area Tide Flats Advisory Group has sunsetted
Oh,
because the Tacoma City Council has adopted their tide flats.
okay, so that one's gone. I need an alternate for South Sound 911. And actually, this is actually a very important position, and I'm not just saying that because Councilmember Lauricella, it is a big agency and has its own taxing authority and touches a lot of lives and big budget and yeah, so it's an important board. Thank you very much for being on that. You don't want to be the alternate on that. We need an alternate for South Sound 911 board.
The actual working alternate has normally been the police chief.
Is that okay? I mean, can you do that, or are you supposed to have an elected official?
The alternates for most board members are their senior law enforcement official or fire chief, depending upon if they're a fire commissioner or elected official.
Okay. Good. We got everything now? Now I'm going to move on to sister cities.
Yes, Mayor, we have everything there.
Thank you. Lakewood Sister Cities Association, Council Representative, Councilmember Michael Branstetter. Would you like to continue in that role?
I am a member of the Sister Cities Association, which is how my name is here. I think that's in this, our 30th anniversary year, where the intent was to invite delegations from all 4 of the sister cities, and whether that's for our May 30th anniversary celebration or whether it's for the Summerfest. I don't know that that's been worked out with each one to do that. I know that Councilmember Talbot is also a member of the board of that to do that. And I would, I'd certainly let you be the primarily liaison to the council if you wanted to do that, or I would continue to do it.
I'm happy to take it off your plate if you would like a break, but we'll still be at the meetings anyway, so,
Yeah, that might be easier for me because I'm also the treasurer for that organization, and I don't want to get.
We'll appoint Councilmember Talbot for that, so Councilmember Branstetter doesn't have to do anything. It is the second Thursday, so you're okay. You still got your third Thursday at PCRC.
I think, yeah, although I think we fluctuate between Tuesday and Wednesday now. So
Oh,
we
okay.
kind of make these meetings work, so it'll be okay.
Okay. So the other, and thank you for providing all these meeting dates for the year. Don't worry, I mean, Councilmember Bell has said she'll be at all these community meetings. Starting tomorrow, Tillicum Woodbrook, that's Councilmember Laura Sella, but you can take that if you'd like. I understand, I mean, people make plans, right? And so first of all, for staff, I really do appreciate that we have got a good calendar here. I know, and I think we've already received some changes, not changes, but cancellations. That's great. Thank you very much. Please let us know in advance. I mean, Councilmember Lindholm has already let me know that there's some meetings that he's just not going to be able to make, not council meetings, but these community meetings that he's been assigned to. So we'll work with that on a weekly or if 2 weeks ahead kind of basis to see who can be where at what meeting. So let's just like Tillicum Woodbrook tomorrow night. Are you going to be able to make that or?
So despite last week committing to going to tomorrow's meeting, I now have a conflict at that time tomorrow. So I'm open to trading with anyone for any of the other meetings that are on the calendar.
Okay, does anybody want to head out to Tillicum Woodbrook tomorrow night? I think I can. So. Okay, so you're planning to be there anyway? Okay. So Councilmember Brandstetter will go to that.
Thank you.
I would also note that Mike shows up to almost every Lake City meeting, so if you don't feel bad if just let him know. I do. Yes, thank you. I think we're okay on all that. Any other questions, concerns about this? Thank you very much for jumping in. Ms. Schumacher? Do you have?
I did have one
Okay.
question, and that was if, I saw that on our calendars, we have a Lakewood Community Collaboration meeting this week, or maybe it's next week. And I'd never heard of this one before, so I just wanted to ask just for some quick background, because I would like to make it, but I don't think I will be able to. So.
Yeah, so that meeting is scheduled for this Wednesday, the 14th at 9 a.m. here at City Hall Council Chambers. It's typically human service providers within the community are meeting on to collaborate with various community groups. It's led by Human Services Coordinator Shannon Bennett. If you're not available, I'm not sure who is. I believe the schedule was provided here as well, and if you're not available, that's fine. You can find another person to attend. It's in person and virtual.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. I can attend February 11th. I just won't be able to attend this week or next week.
I can cover that meeting on Wednesday morning.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Are we ready to move on? I think we are. Thank you very much for doing that. And thank you very much for your willingness to serve on these committees and take those on. I really, really do appreciate it. I believe now we're moving to the city manager. Mr. Russell, what do you have for us today? Oh, wait. Items tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, January 20th, 2026, regular city council meeting and study session. We're going to have the proclamation recognizing Chief Sharp, West Pierce Fire and Rescue. I believe he's retiring. Is that on his retirement? And then we're going to talk about the boards and commissions. We're going to get that third quarter financial report and review some other things. So please take a look at that. And if you have any questions, another big one is authorizing the execution of an agreement for right-of-way services for the Custer Road Safety Improvement Project. So we're all looking forward to construction on Custer Road because that won't create any bottlenecks for me to get to work. Anyway, so that's it. And so Mr. Russell, it's your turn now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. You already hit some of the upcoming events and emailed those out earlier in the list for the year. Obviously, there are a couple cancellations that were noted on there, so rather than just read it, those just hit the ones just immediately upcoming with Telecom, obviously, Neighborhood Association, the Telecom Woodbrook Neighborhood Association meeting tomorrow. Wednesday, community conversation with Pierce County Councilmember Hitchin at the Lakewood Library. January 15th, the MLK Beloved Community Celebration at Pierce College. January 18th, Social Justice and Mercy Talks, Lakewood United Methodist Church. January 21st, 22nd, Association of Washington Cities, City Action Days. And January 31st, the Telecom Kiwanis Wine Fest. Outside of events coming up, obviously with City Days, legislation, the legislative session has started. So we'll forward information out as that becomes pertinent to our legislative policies and what we're looking at, and we'll get that information forwarded on as it comes through. Looking at next week's study session portion of the agenda, did have a question about the 112th project from Far West to Holden. It's a sidewalk project, so it's not a street project. So we didn't do 30% design when it was going through the process, but there's a request to see it. So we can certainly bring that to identify what that project entails if council would so like, just to see it's a 2-block section with sidewalks on both sides with some enhancements in there. So if council would like to see it, we can bring that forward in the study session, just go over it, because certainly there will be some questions that emerge as well. Now, I would say it's a federal project, so it's built to federal standards. So, and it's already out for bid. It didn't go through that 30% design review as a sidewalk project, but certainly happy and never a bad thing to have an overview publicly of that project. So seeing nodding heads in terms of that, so.
Oh, just wait. Wait, keep going. As soon as you're done, we'll take questions.
Oh, okay. Looking at upcoming dates, council dates to take another group photo and individual photos of council members. So looking for a date where we know everyone's going to be here. I know we'll have an absence next Tuesday, so February 2nd. I don't know if anyone is currently planned to be gone that date.
How does that look for everybody? February 2nd?
Okay, we'll plan on photographs that night. And then that is all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Councilmember Pearson, you had one.
Just checking my calendar. Yeah, I think for the 112th Street project, I think it would be good to get, or just be prepared to talk about the traffic impacts and how it relates to the Nyanza Gravelly Lake project and the overlapping, or what the time.
Yeah, so this is from Far West to Holden,
Yep. never
but
mind. Yep,
there's certainly an appropriate question that we'll have prepared for
Okay,
that.
appreciate it.
So even though they're unrelated projects,
Yep.
we'll also let
Thank you.
Planning and Public Works know if that question emerged.
Councilmember Loricella.
To expand on Mr. Pearson's comment, I do believe there is a project on 112th between Gravelly Lake Drive and Bridgeport that's about to start. People are already frustrated with the stoplight at the end of Nyanza and try and take that as a back route to get back to the freeway. Are those going to overlap significantly and frustrate folks even further?
I can't. Any type of conflict in there will bring frustration. I would probably anticipate that there will, but we'll get a better response and be able to provide that next week here.
That'd be great. Yeah,
for
just to
council in
understand
terms of-
how much those projects overlap.
Yeah, we'll give projected substantial completion dates, which I think we're looking at March, April for the current Nyanza Gravelly Lake, and then kind of how that may impact 112th as well. So we'll have Planning Public Works prepared to discuss that question during that portion as well.
Okay, thank you. And then are we scheduled for a council retreat yet, or are we talking about that?
That is one thing that we've had brief discussions, and I probably anticipated that would emerge tonight. So yeah, looking for direction from council about when you want to do that and if there are specific agenda-related topics you want on there. I haven't looked at last year's agenda, but I imagine it was a pretty standard process that was followed.
And we can have that discussion under council member comments if you'd like. Are there any more questions for the city manager? Okay, I do have a couple of questions, comments. Legislative session, our lobbyists are down there. I know in the past, I've never gone, but I've never asked, but to go down and comment on, so I'm looking for volunteers that may be able to get down there on certain days if asked by our lobbyists to make comments at committees or something like that. So if you're available, please let me or the city manager know that you're available on what days you might be available.
Yeah, there certainly may be things that pop up, and a lot of times it's the day before when we know about it. And so we may put out a call to respond related to specific bills that do come up. So yeah, I would just, and we can accept really anyone that has availability if we're in that situation where we're going down to provide testimony as well.
Yeah, I'm, one issue that comes to mind is the flock safety cameras. I mean, there's been some controversy surrounding those. My personal opinion is it's been a very valuable tool for us here in the city of Lakewood. So, I don't know that we have a consensus on that, but that's how I feel. And so I think, depending on the legislation that works through, we may want to comment on that, because the push now is for cities to just turn the things off. And it's like, well, I don't think we want to do that. That's my personal feeling. I don't want to do that because it's really been a valuable tool. And I actually was, I wouldn't say shocked, but I was disappointed in some of the comments that were made in the paper. The individual was not an elected official. They were a party official in Snohomish County, and kind of the cavalier attitude of getting your car stolen was like some small thing, which was the basis of the comments. And I was like, well, it's a small thing if it's not your car, right? And it's a small thing if it's not your only way to get to work. And if it's not a small thing if it's your biggest asset you own. So a little bit condescending, I thought, comment. But if that becomes what's going on down there, we're going to have to stand up and just say, this really works really well for us. We want to be able to use it. We're not going to turn it off.
Yeah, I can tell you, legislation working its way through right now is to put some restrictions on where they can't be used for misdemeanors and have a 72-hour limit on when you can use the data from the Fox system, which would inhibit things such as if you had an impound that you're waiting for a search warrant on, some of those things may be impacted by it. So I think the general idea is to try and increase that 72-hour hold and to be able to use it for misdemeanors if it's appropriate.
Correct, yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep council apprised when we get the prospective bill and reach out to see if anyone's interested in providing testimony.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comments for the city manager? Councilmember Branstad?
Well, with respect to testifying before legislative committees, and again, a lot of times the notification is short as to when a hearing is going to be scheduled in terms of being able to go and do that. I think there are a couple of bills that we need to watch and decide whether we want to accomplish it, because there were some, like last year, there was a bill that we opposed that didn't pass, but it was one to allow any property owner to park 2 recreational vehicles on his lot and then rent them out. Okay, and that bill has been, because it was a bill in the last thing that didn't make it to a vote, it's still on the docket and been reintroduced by the representatives that introduced it. I think and there are a number of bills, I think, like that it's the as we learn about the details in them, that we'll have to look to be able to go to them. And there is a bill to authorize counties to impose business and occupation taxes. And it's interesting because the original draft of it says that a county could impose a business and occupations tax, which counties are not allowed to do now. In the county, in any area where a business and occupation tax is not being imposed yet. So for instance, Pierce County couldn't impose one that would put it in Tacoma, but we don't have a B&O tax on our businesses. And of looking at that bill and how it's worded, and of campaigning to say that let the county do it, but only in unincorporated areas, would be a better amendment to that than the way that the original draft was worded. Because the original draft would allow the county to just then collect money from businesses in Lakewood by whatever formula they came up with. So there are always things, and it's a short session, so things will move fast, and we're going to have to be able to react quickly to be able to do that, either with one of ourselves testifying, or the knowledgeable staff person being able to get down and do that.
Thank you. Any more questions for the city manager? So let's move on to council member comments. So let's start with council member Laura Sella.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two things. One, if we are planning to schedule a retreat, I'm available any Saturday after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
If that works for folks. And the other thing is just a reminder that next week we're meeting on Tuesday instead of Monday. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Council member Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can do most Saturdays. April 25th, that weekend, I'll be unavailable. And yeah, I'll get back to you if there's any other. We have basketball starting up, so I'm not sure when the games are yet.
Going pro.
But as it relates to the retreat, we've done them in a couple of different formats in the past, and I thought the last format that we did with the facilitator, with the consultant, worked really well to really hone in on what our goals were, and assessing our goals, and it might be worthwhile with a shuffle, the shuffle that we've had at city council. So I thought that worked well. There's other ways to do it, but that'd be my thought.
Was that last year's session where you had the consultant in, or was it a previous year's?
Last year,
Okay.
yeah.
We had that guy in here who did the.
Yeah, it was, I think we were in here for, I don't know, from like 8:30 until 1:30 or something. But it was pretty, on point, and kept us on track, and got in, got out, and got what we needed to get accomplished, and had a good path forward. So I thought it was beneficial.
I think, did he even meet with us prior to individually?
Yeah, there was some legwork ahead of time, meeting with the council members to kind of tease out things, and to help him facilitate the conversations and stuff. So I'm sure there's probably some information on that. Yeah.
Yeah, the pre-meetings helped him better able to disseminate down what our top priorities would be. And, because we could come and give topics too, but this already kind of did all the pre-work for it. So it was really nice.
The
It was
same
more
consultant
organized.
met in
Mhm.
advance with each individual. Yeah, that's usually a pretty good format to get stuff out there individually and then have it up collectively to work in. So we'll try and find who helped facilitate that and see.
Councilmember, is that it? Are you done? Councilmember Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do plan to go to the MLK Junior Day event at Pierce College this Thursday. But otherwise, I'm fairly free in February, so no particulars from me. And March too.
Thank you, Councilmember Talbot. Councilmember Brandstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also will be going to the MLK Beloved Community event at Pierce College on Thursday. And on Friday is the next meeting for the elected leadership group working on a unified approach for homelessness in the county. That'll take place in Tacoma, and I'll be going to that. With respect to a retreat, and you know, my preference is to like do it somewhere in the mid-March or April timeframe to get it as close to the end of the first quarter so that we can move forward to that. And I think the only thing that I would like to have a discussion about in the retreat is what process do we want to use and what timeline do we want to give ourselves to updating the city's vision, because the city's vision is specific to by 30 years, which is by 2026. So I think we want to, before we get too far into 2027, have come up with what the new vision is. But the process to come that is important because the vision that we have now took us 2 years to come up with, to be able to go and do that. And we don't want to do that again.
Thank you, Councilmember Brandstetter. Councilmember Lindholm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too am looking forward to the MLK celebration on Thursday. There's a performance of For Color Girls, which I highly recommend. If you haven't been to something down by the Lakewood Playhouse recently, it's incredible. Joe Walsh is doing magical work over there, so make time if you can. I too will be attending the Homeless Coalition on Friday, as well as the second iteration of County Council Chair Hitchens meetings on Saturday. As far as retreat goes, I love the idea of doing it sooner rather than later. I'd love to hear from my fellow council members what their priorities are and how we can work toward them, and I'll make myself available.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I too will be at the MLK event on Thursday. I tried to get a ticket. I was a little too late, so I'm just going to hang around and see if I can grab a seat. So it looks like Councilmember Talbot and I will be looking for 2 extra seats on that. So I am really looking forward to that event. I think it's just going to be fabulous. I also, in respect to kind of our legislative stuff that we're talking about, I did sign up, and I will be going to the AWC City Action Days, which are next week. So that's 2 days. So hopefully I'll have something good to come back and tell my fellow council members if you are unable to attend. I'm really looking forward to that also. And in respects to our retreat, I will make myself available on a Saturday. I too would prefer it to be, I think April is too far out, so maybe end of February and sometime in March maybe, but I think it should happen soon. So thank you, Mayor.
There you go. Thank you, Councilmember Bell. So I am also planning to go to the MLK Beloved Community Celebration, and I did check, and they are sold out. This weekend I went on. So good for them. So planning to be there. I guess nobody will be at the PCRC meeting this week. But anyway, that happens. Other than that, I think I've asked the questions that I wanted to ask about the legislative session, so hopefully everything will go well. I'm only out the 31st of January, and the 7th of February. I think that's the date. So those 2 weekends, after that, I am, I believe, wide open. So we can maybe send out a few different dates that'll work. I'm kind of thinking if we could do kind of towards the end of February or March sometime, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it sounds like people like the process that was used last year. So what we'll do is we'll try and reach out to the same facilitator and see if we can find dates that work and shoot for that timeframe. Because we heard sometime after Valentine's Day and before mid-April at the latest.
Yeah, we should factor in.
Yeah, we won't hit anyone on a weekend date that you may have people out on, a 3-day weekend or something of that nature. But what we'll do is we'll try and track down who we had the facilitating process. Because, I should ask, how much time in advance did they reach out to the individual council members to get priorities?
I don't think, yeah, it didn't seem like it was that far in advance.
Because I'm guessing they'd have to have some time to identify the top priorities of topics to review and go over. So we can, they'll need to have a little bit of lead time, but we'll try and engage and connect and try and follow that same process then. So that makes it pretty easy.
I'm not married to the same person, right? I mean, I don't know that it needs to be exact. So if he's like, well, I can't make it or whatnot, and I don't even know where he came from. But a good facilitator would be helpful. But if you've got ideas about how we can get there, I think the process that we went through was it sounds like everybody was comfortable with that process. So
Yeah, that's the first thing we'll look at is go back, because I assume there was some form of contract that identified what that process was and look to repeat that. And if you have, in all honesty, if you have the same facilitator, that can tend to speed up some process in terms of working with a group of this nature. So we'll see what we can come up with and find something that works.
okay, Councilmember Lorisell.
Yeah, I would agree. We're not married to the facilitator, but we are somewhat married to the process. That said, we should also look at cost and make sure we're getting our value out of it as a repeat, as opposed to taking the process and using it if we've been licensed to do so.
Hopefully I have more information for next Monday to bring back to yes, thank you.
Tuesday. Thank you.
You know what? I'm gonna come here and the microphones are gonna work. And I'm like, you guys are a day late. So, yeah, hopefully we have, information by then to where we can reach out, or we can have that broader discussion with council about a potential facilitator dates and start working on that process.
Anything else for the good of the order from anybody? Thank you very much. Good discussion surrounding, and I do appreciate staff making their presentation on Mount Tacoma Drive and the issues we have around that. Those are not easy items to deal with, when we start talking about getting more right of way and those kind of things. So I appreciate staff's flexibility in that regard on that we do need some traffic calming to improve that intersection. And I think for the reasons stated, that I think a lot of us have driven through that intersection and, we're good or lucky in one of the two. And to Councilmember Branstedter's point that Meadow is a road that we will probably look forward to maybe making improvements to someday in the future. So for the reasons stated by Councilmember Branstetter, for a number of reasons, I think, and all good. So really do appreciate their flexibility in that regard, and I look forward to to what they have to say or what they come up with, and to hear about the discussions they're going to have with the landowners there. So with that, I think we're done here, and I'm just going to do the gavel just because I like it. And so thank you very much. And so next Tuesday at 6, It's a 6 o'clock meeting. So next Tuesday at 6 PM. Thank you.